When I was growing up in a displaced persons camp after World War II, we always stood for the teacher. When we were students in grade school, when the teacher came in, we all stood up. And that was what people did in those days to show respect to the teacher. So, and also to show that they're alert and aware, because they can stand up. Okay, so the course for tonight is going to be Sutta 39, the Greater Discourse at Asapura. This discourse was given to the monks in training, and it's a really complete path of how to start the training and how to progress in the training, and then how to do the meditative practice. So I won't dwell on the particulars of the early training in the monks, but I will spend time on the meditative practice, because that's what we're doing here. We're honing our meditative practice. Also, this sutta describes how the Buddha came to full awakening, how he came to full liberation. So that will be the latter part of the discourse. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living in the Angan country at a town of the Angans named Asapura. There the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus thus, "Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir," they replied, "the Blessed One said this: recluses, recluses, bhikkhus, that is how people perceive you, and when you are asked, what are you? You claim that you are recluses. Since that is what you are designated and what you claim to be, you should train thus. We will undertake and practice these things that make one a recluse, that make one a Brahman." And in this context, a Brahman is an arahat, a fully enlightened being. So that our designations may be true and our claims genuine, and so that the services of those whose robes, alms, food, resting place, and medicinal requirements we use shall bring them great fruit and benefit, and so that our going forth shall not be in vain, but fruitful and fertile. So then the first section is on conduct and livelihood. So it describes keeping the precepts. And in our retreat, because we are semi-recluses in this week of training, we are keeping the precepts. The next section is on the restraint of the senses. So here, what more is to be done, bhikkhus? You should train thus. We will guard the doors of our sense faculties. On seeing a form with the eye, will not grasp at its signs and features. Since if we left the eye faculty unguarded, evil and unwholesome states of covetousness and grief might invade us. We will practice the way of its restraint. We will guard the eye faculty. We will undertake the restraint of the eye faculty. So the same for all the sense doors. And we are talking about restraining the sense doors when we're walking, restraining the eye faculty so that we don't grasp at the features of these beautiful things, that we keep our attention internal, not external. Moderation in eating. You should train thus. We will be moderate in eating. Reflecting wisely, we will take food neither for amusement, nor for intoxication, nor for the sake of physical beauty and attractiveness, but only for the endurance and continuance of the body, for ending discomfort and for assisting the holy life, considering, thus I shall terminate old feelings without arousing new feelings, and I shall be healthy and blameless and shall live in comfort. Then on wakefulness, and he goes through staying awake during the day and during parts of the night, in which way he admonishes the monks on how to be wakeful during the whole 24-hour period with a certain time for sleeping. Then mindfulness and full awareness. In this section, he describes to the monks how to be mindful and fully aware in their daily movements. So he tells the monks to you should train thus, be possessed of mindfulness and full awareness. We will act with full awareness when going forth and returning. And he goes through all the activities of daily life and how to be fully aware during those activities. Now, this is training mindfulness in a different way. It's the beginning of training of mindfulness. And in a way, Vipassana training is the training of this kind of mindfulness. To be fully aware when you're walking that you're walking, fully aware when you're putting on your shirt that you're putting on your shirt, fully aware when you're pouring a cup of coffee that you're pouring the cup of coffee and that you don't spill over, fully aware that you're taking a spoonful of powder and putting it into the water and you don't spill the powder. So this is full awareness in daily life, and it is teaching mindfulness because, as you know, sometimes we're doing our activities and our minds are off somewhere in la la land. We're not paying attention. We're either hurrying or we're getting distracted with somebody else, and so we spill the coffee, or spilling the coffee for me was a real common thing to do. and so this is mindfulness training in the daily life, in the mundane life. Now we get to the section relating to the meditative practice. So then, abandoning the hindrances. So here, a bhikkhu resorts to a secluded resting place, the forest, the root of a tree, a mountain ravine, a hillside cave, a charnel ground, a jungle thicket, an open space, a heap of straw, or Dhamma Sukha. On returning from his alms round, after his meal, he sits down folding his legs crosswise, sitting his body erect and establishing mindfulness before him. So, what does that really mean? It means that you find your comfortable place to do your sitting practice. So whether it's a chair or whether it's on a cushion, you find a comfortable place with your body erect and alert and establish mindfulness before him. That phrase really, really stumped me. What does establishing mindfulness before me, what does that really mean? And over the years of practice and talking with Bhante, I came to understand that establishing mindfulness before doing the meditation practice means that I am establishing mindfulness as an enlightenment factor. The mindfulness that we talked about in daily life, where you're mindful of what you're doing, is a mundane mindfulness. But the mindfulness that is a enlightenment factor is a higher type of mindfulness that is remembering to observe how mind's attention moves. So it's the mindfulness of the mind's activity, not the body's activity. And it became clear because one time I asked Bhante, what does a mindfulness as an enlightenment factor, what kind of mindfulness is that? It is remembering to observe how mind's attention moves from one object to the next. So establishing that kind of mindfulness, and then going through the hindrances, abandoning covetousness for the world. He abides with a mind free from covetousness. He purifies his mind from covetousness. So covetousness is also sometimes saying greed for the sense pleasures. And just wanted to bring in a personal kind of reflection on that greed for sense pleasures. When I was an undergraduate student, and I had some really hard times with my studies, and I was really feeling pretty glum and blue, I would walk about a half a mile to a diner and have a nice big chocolate sundae. And that was my way of relieving those feelings, because I didn't have my meditation practice at that time. So again, when doing the meditation practice, maybe you can also be aware of, well, when my meditation practice is really difficult and I'm really having a hard time, what do I do in order to give myself some pleasure with my senses? Again, for me, it was going for a cup of tea. I would go and make myself a cup of tea and feel better. So this is abandoning the covetousness for the sense pleasures. Then abandoning ill will and hatred. He abides with a mind free from ill will, with compassion for the welfare of all living beings. So one cannot really go on to progress in the jhanas if there is significant ill will, maybe not hatred, but significant ill will. So that is the tool that we use in TWIM when the ill will is a hindrance for a meditator is the forgiveness practice. Because in the forgiveness practice, you learn how to let go of these old emotions and thought patterns that happened many, or maybe not so many, but happened in the past. And they're still affecting you today. But those happenings aren't happening now. They were in the past. So in order to free up your mind so that it can really immerse in the jhanas, one needs to diligently uproot those ill feelings and let go of them. Because the meditation practice is actually letting go. We let go of so many things during the progress of the jhanas until we actually let go of feeling and perception and go into cessation. So it's a continual process of letting go of obstructions and letting go of patterns that are no longer useful or healthy. Okay, then that's with the ill will. He purifies his mind from ill will and hatred. Abandoning sloth and torpor, he abides free from sloth and torpor, percipient of light, mindful and fully aware. He purifies his mind from sloth and torpor. One of the things that can happen is we can get into one-pointed concentration. Usually that happens if we hold on to the object too tightly. And when we hold on to the object too tightly because we don't really want to be pulled away by any kind of distractions, we get into a one-pointed concentration, and that concentration shuts out all the distractions. But there's no awareness there. And the proper kind of collectedness on the object of meditation is a collectedness with awareness. Whatever is around you doesn't interrupt you. You sense that it's present, but your attention is gently on your object of meditation. And I like to use the little simile that the Buddha has used in some of his suttas as holding on to a quail, holding on to a bird. If you're going to squeeze it too tight, it's going to suffocate. If you don't hold it tightly enough, it's going to fly away. So holding your object of meditation, the loving kindness in your heart, is just enough tightness there, not meaning tension and tightness, but just enough energy there to hold it without the distractions carrying you away, and without squeezing it so tight that you go into torpor. And torpor is not really a very pleasant state. The sloth is a pleasant state when you're sleepy, but torpor is, when you come out of torpor, you don't really feel very well. You don't feel very alert. You come out of torpor and you're kind of sluggish. So that's abandoning sloth and torpor. Percipient of light. So your perception is of light, not of this really deep, concentrated state where everything is shut out. Okay, and that's abandoning. Then abandoning restlessness and remorse. He abides unagitated with a mind inwardly peaceful. He purifies his mind from restlessness and remorse. And here again, if a person has remorse that needs to be cleared, we use the forgiveness meditation in order to clear the remorse. Abandoning doubt, he abides having gone beyond doubt, unperplexed about wholesome states. He purifies his mind from doubt. So one has to give up a certain amount of doubt about the process and just really go for it. Okay, I'm going to give it my full attention and see if it really does do what is advertised. So So giving up doubt is important, and we talked about it yesterday as well. Then he goes, I like this sutta because it's not only for the left brain, but it's also for the right brain. And I tend to be a right and left brain person, so I really like the similes that are in the suttas because it speaks to me at a different level. So hopefully the similes will also speak to you at a different level, because similes, we have the reasoning mind where we try to understand things in a reasonable way, but then we have the stories that touch a different part of the mind and give a different understanding. So this is a simile about how it feels to let go of these hindrances. Bhikkhus, suppose a man were to take a loan and undertake business, and his business were successful so that he could repay all the money of the old loan, and there would remain enough extra to maintain a wife. Then on considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. Or suppose a man were afflicted with suffering and gravely ill, and his food would not agree with him, and his body had no strength. But later he would recover from the affliction, and his food would agree with him, and his body would regain strength. Then on considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. Or suppose a man were imprisoned in a prison house, but later he would be released from prison, safe and secure with no loss to his property. Then on considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. Or suppose a man were a slave, not self-dependent, but dependent on others, unable to go where he wants, but later on he would be released from slavery, self-dependent, independent of others, and freed man able to be where he wants. Then on considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. Or suppose a man with wealth and property were to enter a road across a desert, but later on he would cross over the desert safe and secure with no loss to his property. Then on considering this, he would be glad and full of joy. So too, bhikkhus, when these 5 hindrances are unabandoned in himself, a bhikkhu sees them respectively as a debt, a disease, a prison house, slavery, and a road across a desert. But when these 5 hindrances have been abandoned in himself, he sees them as freedom from debt, healthiness, release from prison, freedom from slavery, and a land of safety. Okay, so now on to the jhanas. So having abandoned these 5 hindrances, impediments of the mind, imperfections of the mind that weaken wisdom, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, he enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. Then he makes a rapture and pleasure born of seclusion drench, seep, and fill and pervade his body, so that there is no part of his body unpervaded by the rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. So now then on to the simile. Just as a skilled bathman or a bathman's apprentice heaps bath powder in a metal basin and sprinkling it gradually with water kneads it until the moisture wets his ball of bath powder, soaks it and pervades it inside and out, and yet the ball itself does not ooze. So too a bhikkhu makes a rapture and pleasure born of seclusion, drenched, seep, and pervade his body, so that there's no part of his whole body unpervaded by the rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. So, how to say it in another way? We have, rather than bath powder and water, we have the three elements of our practice. We have the mindfulness, we have the right effort, which is the 6 R's, and we have the collectedness. And in the beginning, what we're doing is we're measuring these out and adjusting them and working with them, working with the mindfulness, working with holding the object, collectedness, holding the loving kindness in a collected sort of way and keeping our attention on it, using the 6 R's to relax and release and return. So our process is one of evaluating, adjusting, tweaking this, tweaking that, and it's quite effortful, just like when you take the bath powder and the water and then you try to make that ball, you put quite a lot of energy into it. So getting into the first jhana requires quite a bit of energy and adjustment. So how do we know that we're into the first jhana? Well, we're on our object of meditation, and we're on that object for a minute or two, and there's no distractions. They're not there. And so the loving kindness flows. It flows out to the spiritual friend or to ourselves, and there's a peacefulness and a joyfulness from seclusion from the distractions. That's what it says here, that the rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. So we're secluded from the distractions for a short period of time, and that is a state of jhana. Then, when a distraction occurs and our mind has totally gone to it, the jhana has disappeared. Our attention is on a distraction. However, as time goes on, the mindfulness becomes stronger, and the distraction does not pull us away in the same way. We can see how the mind is getting pulled away, and we catch it sooner, so it's not out there, being wound up in the distraction. So we bring it back. So we bring it back sooner. The 6 R's are working. Our mindfulness is working. Our collectedness is working, and we start having more and more joy. And the joy can be of several kinds of feelings in the body. There can be goosebumps in the body. There can be feelings of energy moving in the body. There can be feelings of kind of waves of joy coming over the whole process, and just allowing that joy to pervade the body is what the Buddha has said in this particular section. So then going on, with the stilling of applied and sustained thought. So in the beginning, we often use phrases to keep that loving kindness going. May I be happy. May I be free from suffering. But now the loving kindness is strong enough and it's accessible enough that just by putting attention on it, it starts to flow, and we don't need to do the phrases anymore. We don't need to have those cues. So then that's the stilling of these applied and sustained thought. And then a bhikkhu enters and abides in the second jhana, which has self-confidence and singleness of mind without applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of collectedness. So in the first jhana, the pleasure is born from the fact that we're not distracted by the distractions, that we have moments of being with the object in stillness. In the second jhana, the mind stays on the object for longer, and the mind becomes confident. Oh yeah, I really have the process. A distraction occurs, I just release, relax, smile, and go back to the object of meditation. It's a nice process. These distractions are there, but they're not really bothering me. So then you have the singleness of mind on the object for a longer period of time. And then you have the pleasure and rapture born of collectedness. So he makes the rapture and pleasure born of collectedness drench, seep, fill, and pervade his body, so that there is no part of his whole body unpervaded by the rapture and pleasure born of collectedness. Just as though there were a lake whose waters welled up from below, and it had no inflow from the east, west, north, or south, and it would not be replenished from time to time by showers or rain. Then the cool fount of water welling up in the lake would make the cool water drench, seep, fill, and pervade the lake, so that there would be no part of the whole lake unpervaded by cool water. So too a bhikkhu makes the rapture and pleasure born of collectedness drench, seep, fill, and pervade the body, so that there is no part of the whole body unpervaded by the rapture and pleasure born of collectedness. So the rapture and pleasure becomes a uplifting joy. The body becomes lighter, and you stay on the object of meditation longer. Your 6 hours are easier. They're becoming more automatic. And that pleasure and joy just pervades the whole body. And the body feels good. Mind feels good for a period of time. Then a distraction occurs. Okay. Again, because when the fading away as well of rapture, a bhikkhu abides in equanimity and mindful and fully aware, still feeling pleasure in the body, he enters upon and abides in the third jhana, on account of which noble ones announce, he has a pleasant abiding who has equanimity and is mindful. He makes the pleasure divested of rapture drench, steep, fill, and pervade the body, so that there is no part of the whole body unpervaded by the pleasure divested of rapture. Just as in a pond of blue or red or white lotuses, some lotuses that are born and grown in the water thrive immersed in the water without rising out of it, and cool water drenches, seeps, fills, and pervades them to the tips of their roots, so that there is no part of all those lotuses unpervaded by cool water. So too a bhikkhu makes the pleasure divested of rapture drench, steep, fill, and pervade the body, so that there's no part of the body unpervaded by the pleasure divested of rapture. One thing I do want to say is there should be no effort in trying to pervade the body. It's more an allowing of the joy to be in the body, allowing the joy to pervade the body. So I hope you don't understand it as, oh, there's a joy, now I have to move it here and now I have to move it there. No, you're allowing it to go wherever it wants to go within the body. So here now in the third jhana, the collectedness is becoming stronger. You're able to stay gently on the feeling of loving kindness in your chest, radiating out towards your spiritual friend. And you're very comfortable in the body, and you're comfortable in the mind, and the equanimity starts to grow. And so with the growing of the equanimity, the rapture disappears. It goes away. And one of the stories that Bhante always said was, people will come in and say, well, where's the joy? I lost the joy. So, not realizing that losing the joy actually is progress. Because sometimes people can get attached to the joy. That's one of the reasons in Vipassana they always said, you're going to get attached. So being able to see the joy arising and then passing away, because all states arise and pass away. Realizing that the joy has passed, but now you have this equanimity, and people will come in for their interview and say, yeah, everything's fine. Everything's just fine. It's all going well. So that's the feeling of equanimity in the third jhana. So mindfulness also has become sharper. So now in the third jhana, you can really notice how the mind is starting to lift off the object and go towards you hear a noise and you can notice the mind starting to go towards the noise. And you can let that go. And the noise doesn't bother you. And then you become more and more centered, and there's the noise, and the mind stays on the object of meditation. And it's still loving kindness. But it's a lighter form of loving kindness. In the beginning, the loving kindness is very energetic. As you start going through the jhanas, the loving kindness becomes milder and softer. So by the time you get to the third jhana, the loving kindness is a softer feeling that you're radiating. Okay, again, bhikkhus, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain and the previous disappearance of joy and grief, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. He sits pervading this body with a pure, bright mind, so that there's no part of his whole body unpervaded by the pure, bright mind, just as though a man were sitting covered from the head down with a white cloth, so that there would be no part of his whole body unpervaded by the white cloth. So too a bhikkhu sits pervading his body with a pure, bright mind, so that there's no part of his whole body unpervaded by the pure, bright mind. So then, after you've been in the third jhana for a while, and the body is very comfortable, and the mind has a balance, an equanimity in it, you start losing perception of parts of the body. And people will say, well, my hands disappeared, or my legs disappeared, or there's a fuzziness in the, in my sense of my body. So the mind is starting to move from the physical body up towards the mental body, it's moving away from the physical to the mental, because we're mind and body. And now the attention is going more to the mind and to the functioning of the mind. The equanimity is there, and it's even stronger. the feeling of loving kindness starts moving up to the head because we're losing contact with the body. The awareness is losing contact with the body. So when that happens, when the attention no longer is on body parts or the feeling of the pleasure in the body, and it's going more into the head, into the mind, the equanimity is there, the mind is light, the feeling of loving kindness is even softer than before. And the mind is, he says, the mind is, let's see, where are we? It's pure bright mind. So the mind is very alert. It's alert and more balanced. There's more balance in the mind. So when that happens on the retreat, when you get into the fourth jhana, we will be changing your meditation practice. And when that happens for each of you, you will know what the change is. So now, hopefully, using the suttas, I have explained kind of the progression that you can expect happening in going from the first to the second to the third to the fourth jhana. Along the way, you might have some insights. And one of the insights that I had, which was very dramatic, was that pleasure and pain are two sides of the same coin. And it really kind of hit me that there can't be any pleasure without pain, and there can't be any pain without pleasure. This is what we experience. That is our experience as humans. We experience pleasure, we experience pain. Pleasure and pain are two sides of the same coin. And man, I just really, that really kind of hit me between the, because on the one hand, what we'd like to do is always have pleasure. And we're pleasure-seeking beings. When we have pain, we try to find a way to change the pain into pleasure using a hot fudge sundae. So you will have some insights that you will say, yes, this is really how it is. And that insight will always be something that you have. That is the experience, the direct experience of the truth. It's not something that you've thought about. It's not something that you've heard. It's an experience. So look for the insights, your particular personal insights that you get as you travel this way. So Bhante has said the jhanas are levels of understanding. So those understandings will come as you go through these different levels. Then we will switch to how the Buddha proceeded from, after the fourth jhana, how he went on to his full enlightenment. We are not going to follow the Buddha's path because the Buddha had he had psychic powers, and so he could now switch to using his psychic power to gain the three full knowledges. Tomorrow I'm going to go over his chief disciple's path, Sariputta's path, of going through the jhanas to cessation. And this is the path that we're going to be following in the retreat. But I want wanted to read this section on how the Buddha did it because these truths are truths that he realized fully for himself. And these are the truths that he puts into his teaching, which is the right view, which he calls right view, leading to the cessation of suffering. So I'm going to then go to the sutta where he describes the rest of the path. And that's Sutta 4. He said, when my concentrated mind was thus purified and bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, I directed it to the knowledge of the recollection of past lives. I recollected my manifold past lives, that is, 1 birth, 2 births, 3 births, 4 births, 5 births, 10 births, 20 births, 30 births, 40 births, 50 births, 100 births, 1,000 births, 100,000 births, many eons of world contractions, many eons of world expansions, many eons of world contractions and expansions. There I was so named, of such a clan, with such an appearance. Such was my nutriment, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my life term, and passing away from there, I reappeared elsewhere, and there too I was so named, of such a clan, with such an appearance. Such was my nutriment, such my experience of pleasure and pain, such my life term, and passing away from there, I reappeared here. Thus, with their aspects of particulars, I recollected my manifold past lives. This was the first true knowledge, attained by me in the first watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent, and resolute. Now, here in the sutta, the verbiage that is used is how the Buddha appeared in one life and then passed away, and appeared in another life and passed away. We should not have a misperception that this was a soul that went from lifetime to lifetime. Because as we go on in our studies during our week, we're going to also touch on the concept of dependent origination, which says that consciousnesses arise and pass away. So it's really the consciousnesses that arose and passed away. The Buddha's consciousness, in one lifetime he passed away, and another consciousness arose. However, that consciousness had some of the baggage of a past life, and those are called formations. So just to clarify that there was no eternal soul passing from one lifetime to another. Then that was his first true knowledge. So his knowledge was that, yes, there are many lifetimes that consciousnesses pass away and reappear, pass away or reappear, and there's pain. He mentioned the pain and suffering in each lifetime that he saw. Okay, then, when my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, I directed it to the knowledge of the passing away and reappearance of beings. With the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, I saw beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate. I understood how beings pass on according to their actions. Thus, these worthy beings who were ill conducted in body, speech, and mind, revilers of noble ones, wrong in their views, giving effect to wrong view in their actions on the dissolution of the body after death, have reappeared in a state of deprivation, in bad destination and perdition, even in hell. But those worthy beings who were well conducted in body, speech, and mind, not revilers of noble ones, right in their views, giving effect to right view in their actions, on the dissolution of the body after death, have reappeared in a good destination, even the heavenly world. Thus, with the divine eye, which is purified and surpassing the human, I saw beings passing away and reappearing, inferior and superior, fair and ugly, fortunate and unfortunate, and I understood how beings pass on according to their actions. So that is the other knowledge. Yes, this was the second knowledge attained by me in the middle watch of the night. Ignorance was banished and true knowledge arose. Darkness was banished and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent, ardent, and resolute. So he not only saw that beings pass on the wheel of samsara, going around and around and around from lifetime to lifetime, he saw that it's the actions that is the karma. And the actions are what determine how you're going to pass on, how you're going to evolve. If you do unwholesome things and you have unwholesome thoughts and your behavior is unwholesome, you will devolve into the animal realm, the ghost realm, the hell realm, the hungry ghost realm, the hell realm, below the human. If you purify your mind and go towards the wholesome, and you cultivate wholesome thoughts, wholesome speech, wholesome actions, then the actions will, speech is also an action, then the actions will propel you towards either a human realm with a good surrounding, or the heavenly realms. So this is his understanding from direct seeing with his divine eye, that this is the way that karma works. I probably can explain it better, but this is the best explanation I can do right now. And we will probably be touching on karma in later days. So that's his second knowledge of the night. Then when my concentrated mind was purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, wieldy, steady, and attained to imperturbability, I directed it to the knowledge of the destruction of the taints. So the destruction of the taints is done in steps, stepwise, as a person goes through the path of purification. There are things that we let go of, which are the unwholesome actions, the unwholesome thoughts, and the mind gets more and more purified. So with the purification of the mind and the full understanding of really the dependent origination, then I directed it to the knowledge of the destruction of the taints. I directly knew as it actually is. This is suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. This is the origin of suffering, which is craving. I directly knew as it actually is. This is a cessation of suffering, the relief that we get with the 6 R's, with the relaxing. This is the mundane relief of suffering. And I knew as it actually is. This is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. I directly knew as it actually is. So the path, the Eightfold Path, is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So then these are the taints I directly knew as it actually is. This is the origin of the taints I directly knew as it actually is. This is a cessation of the taints I directly knew as it actually is. This is the way leading to the cessation of the taints. When I knew and saw thus, my mind was liberated from the taint of sensual desire, from the taint of being, and from the taint of ignorance. When it was liberated, there came the knowledge, it is liberated. I directly knew, birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done had been done, there is no more coming to any state of being. So that is how the Buddha proceeded to find the path to the cessation of suffering, not only permanently when finally getting off the wheel of rebirth, but also the cessation of suffering in the daily life. And that is the highest level, that is the Arahat that he describes here. Now, getting back to our other sutta, again using a simile. Just as if there were a lake in a mountain recess, clear, limpid, and undisturbed, so that a man with good sight, standing on the bank, could see shells, gravel, and pebbles, and also shoals of fish swimming around and resting. He might think, there is this lake, clear, limpid, and undisturbed, and there are these shells, gravel, and pebbles, and also these shoals of fish swimming about and resting. So too, a bhikkhu understands as it actually is. This is suffering. This is the cause of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So, birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what has to be done has been done. There is no more coming to any state of being. So there's a mind that can see, like in a clear lake, exactly reality as it is without any filters. You just see you see the scene, you hear the heard, you taste the flavor, you smell the smell, and there's no story, it's just pure understanding and awareness of reality. So that's what the Blessed One said. The bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words.